Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'm ready.
I'm not.
Okay.
Could you wait? What are the time markers?
Okay, for a short informative, it's 5.5 to 6.5.
Or I have 6 to 7. Or is that the long?
That's the long is 7 to 8.
I had
the
6
short
to
was 6
7.
to 7. I don't
Is it
know.
6 to
Because
7?
it's 6:30, but I meant what time are you gonna
I usually go 1 minute at 6 minutes. Do you want more?
Could I have 5 minutes?
Sure. Okay.
5 and then, or actually 4 minutes and then 6 minutes.
Okay.
Because
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Just whenever. People love to be in love. I'm sure many of you have experienced love, whether it's with your family, friends, a pet, and for some of you have even been in love with that special someone. Today, I'm going to be talking about romantic love and specifically the science behind that. First, I will explain the 3 stages of love, which are lust, attraction, and then attachment, and then the science behind that stage. For the first stage, lust, it's basically the first inclination and desire when you see someone. So if you're walking down the street and you notice someone, that would be the first part of the lust stage. And this year, Stephen Arnocki from the Department of Psychology at Nipissing University researched the attractiveness for Sage journals and posted an article called Self-Perceived Male Value, Facial Attractiveness, and Mate Preferences. And he said that in long-term mating, women prefer indices of investment and parenting proclivities, whereas short-term mating typically entails greater prioritization and good parenting indicators and good gene indicators and physical attractiveness and masculinity. So basically, in short-term relationships, people mainly focus on physical attraction, whereas older women who are looking for a long-term relationship focus on good parenting skills and overall personality traits. And that brings us to the second stage, which is attraction. Although this isn't the biggest and longest stage of being in love, it's definitely the more fast moving and the most happens. This is also the honeymoon stage that people always talk about because it's the first part of the relationship. So before I explain the scientific process behind attraction, I'm just going to go over neurotransmitters. So this is a neuron or a nerve cell, which is basically the cells in your brain. And over here is where the neuron, the dendrites, this is the main part of the cell, and that's where the first chemical message is received. And then that message gets transferred through the myelin sheath and out of the axon terminal to other neighboring cell bodies. And basically, the neurotransmitter gets passed through the cell, and once that is passed through, depending on what neurotransmitter and what path the neurotransmitter takes, it has the outcome of the particular emotion you're going to feel. So for this stage, the main neurotransmitter used is dopamine, or the main transmitter releases dopamine. So after reading a part of a research paper, How Do Neurons Work Together? Lessons from the Auditory Cortex in 2013, Kenneth D. Harris spoke about how dopamine is a reward system and has feelings and releases feelings of satisfaction and automatic pleasure. So it relays positive messages euphoria and satisfaction. So that's why when people first start in a relationship, they're automatically always drawn to one another and really want to see them, because each time they see that person, dopamine is released. And then as well as dopamine, another a hormone is released, which is norepinephrine, which is an excitatory neurotransmitter. And norepinephrine and epinephrine are adrenaline, which I'm sure many of you heard of, adrenaline rush. So when norepinephrine and epinephrine is released, when they see that person, blood rushes throughout their body. So it goes to their lungs and muscles and like brain, but it leaves very little blood for their stomach, which is like that feeling of like butterflies in your stomach that you may have heard of. And then as well as that, the other neurotransmitter is serotonin, but instead of increase serotonin, or instead of like increase of that, it's actually decrease. And decreased levels of serotonin are also found in people with OCD, which is why people in the first stages of a relationship often seem very obsessive and like always wanting to be with that person. So this is like dopamine, norepinephrine. And then as well in this stage, a big part of it is all of those hormones being released cloud up the amygdala, which is the pleasure center of the brain. And because of all those hormones released, the pleasure center of the brain becomes clouded, and like the person in love's judgment is inhibited. So that's why people in love make often like foolish choices. So for the last stage of love, which is attachment, serotonin and oxytocin are the main neurotransmitters released. So in 2016, John Langeslane wrote a research paper called Regulations of Romantic Feelings for PLOS ONE Journal, and basically he said that people like have very bad regulations of love, like they can't control what they're feeling, and this is due to these neurotransmitters. So oxytocin, which is known as the commitment neuromodulator, also known as the hormone, is a neuropeptide produced by the pituitary gland, and it's basically released when people like cuddle or are in close contact with the other person, and that's like when they feel personal bonds. So like these are related to monogamous relationships. So once people have like reached a stage of attachment, these neurotransmitters are heightened, and they have like a successful monogamous relationship. So like people who are faithful to their spouse or partner have higher levels of these neurotransmitters. So basically, as you can see, love is still a mystery, and there's a lot to be known about it. But if you're ever feeling heartbroken or very infatuated, you can blame the science behind it. Thank you.
Okay. Alexa, how did that go?